What if your next big idea could revolutionize an industry? Today's guest, Ghazenfer Mansour, is making that happen every day. As the founder and CEO of Technology Rivers, he helps startups and businesses turn ideas into powerful AI-driven software solutions, especially in health tech and SaaS. With over 15 years of experience in software architecture, product innovation, and digital transformation, he's here to share some game-changing insights on entrepreneurship, AI, and building scalable tech. Today, he'll talk about his book, Beyond the Download: How to Build Mobile Apps That People Love, Use, and Share Every Day. And we'll look at actionable advice to guide you towards success. Ghazenfer, thank you so much for joining us here on the Innovators Inside podcast.
Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm really excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I get to capture you right at the end of the week. We're leading into a weekend, so no other stress after this interview, right? We get to talk tech, entrepreneurship, and then go to some downtime.
Absolutely.
So I want to start off our conversation by playing a game. We like to call this our rapid fire section. So I've parsed out a few questions here that I want to ask. I'm going to start with Ian, and I'll probably alternate between the two of you, but you have to answer sort of the first thing that pops into your head. We absolutely welcome conversation to follow.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Okay. Let's see. Ian, what's one industry you think is ripe for disruption in the next 5 years?
I mean, all of them, but can we, I mean, like genuinely, but no, like, but I'm tracking food. Like, I don't know if disruption is right, but there's so much incredible innovation happening in food, from health to transportation to productivity and disease management to substitutes to distribution. I'll stop there. Just food.
That's interesting. Ghazenfer, what's your favorite thing happening in food right now? We'll go off of Ian's.
There are many. So seed-based diet. I make my own almond milk at home.
Love that.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of non-processed food. Not that I still don't like, but having 3 kids at home, so you do still eat sometime, but try to avoid.
I got to tell you, I know. I mean, this has been a conversation for decades, right? Like, how do we move away from sort of the processed packaged supply chain, particularly in North America? But I have seen such incredible startups working in spaces that are, some of them are controversial, right? Lab grown meats that are, fully identical to live counterparts, things like that. Some of them are completely new ways to avoid processing and to get like ultra local, whether it's ingredients, production. It does feel like the business models are starting to be able to catch up with what we've known for a very long time about, an actual healthy diet. And so I don't know, I'm pretty excited about that. I don't make my own seed milks though. That's fun.
But on the same, I think we do see a lot of innovation and a lot of activities on the longevity side. People, I mean, it's relevant. That's the focus. Like, everybody wants to be healthy, live longer. So a lot of innovation happening in that space.
Yeah, you got Brian Johnson right out there. One of many out there publishing every single health metric, including every single thing that he eats. And I think he counts food pretty high. Yeah, longevity. Wouldn't we all like it? And healthy longevity. That's a fun one.
Yeah, but I mean, he also dedicates a ridiculous amount of hours a day towards that longevity.
That's true.
Like, yeah. So I think there's that aspect too, is do any of us, do innovators have the time to...
Well, yeah. And I know we really dove in on this, but when you talk about sort of the business model and things that are changing, right? The reason that I'm really excited about food innovation, it's not new brands and new distribution mechanisms. It's that ultimate tension between convenience and health. Maybe that can get disrupted. I'm seeing things that uh, that promise to help people avoid having to make that choice as often, and that is exciting.
Ooh, see, now I love that. That's an interesting idea.
Robot
Oh.
salad makers. Next question.
Yes. Okay. Okay. This one is for Ghazenfer. What is your favorite book?
There are many. If you look behind me, I buy a book faster than I can read. Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence Others. I think that's still one of the top books, and I share that as a graduation gift to many people.
Ooh, why is that?
Because I think as those kids are graduating and they go into the real world, I want them to understand really how to make friends, how to influence others, as whether you're a worker, whether you're an engineer, whether you are a salesperson or entrepreneur. Book is for everybody.
Well, those are just absolute critical skill sets. I haven't read that book. I feel like I should. I've heard of it 1,000 times, and I think it's famous, and I haven't read it. Are there any lessons that stand out to you?
There are many. One of them, there was a story about like remembering people's name and
Yeah.
how to respond. So obviously, every chapter has a one lesson, and it's all amazing.
Well, I got to tell you that's one I'm working on with my kids, and I'm terrible at it, so I'm going to go read this book.
Yeah, that's one for the show notes for sure. All right, Ian, next question for you. Are you a morning person or a night owl? Like one
Night
of your
owl.
best ideas? Yeah. Yeah.
That's it. Night owl.
100%. Yep. Okay. Actually, I am too, but it's more like I'll be asleep and then I kind of jolt awake and I'm like, oh, I have to write this down right now. And so I have like a little journal that I keep on my nightstand for those weird like 1 a.m. or like 3 a.m. jolt awake moments. But
totally. Well, and that's like, by the way, that's like such an interesting area for creepy AI, right? So, because it happens to me too. And in fact, I think I might just be making all this up, but I'm pretty sure that there have been a number of studies that connect, writing down and documenting what's happening in your dream state to everything from creativity to lucid dreaming to like a whole bunch of really interesting stuff. But you have to actually remember to do it. And like, how often do you jolt upright and want to document something, but then just put your head back on the pillow? I do that all the time. Hey, we have AI, little pin sleeping next to us, one of many sensors listening to everything that happens, and boom, it helps you remember in the morning and jog your creativity. There's a free startup idea for somebody that wants to put a microphone in people's beds.
that is creepy, but that is cool. It's very Black Mirror, that. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but great idea.
There'll be some, I mean, it genuinely, it feels inevitable. And the really interesting thing is going to be, what is the innovation experimental tension, to get there in a way that fits in the expectations of society and all that. And there's innovation is full of failure. I think there's going to be a lot of failures on the way to something that I would actually want to use.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm willing to invest in those failures. So, come to me with a proposal.
Well, I mean, that's the thing though, right? Like those, even investing in those failures, like leads to success down the road in some other fashion. So
I wouldn't call it a failure. I would say it's another learning. Every failed project is a learning.
So like fundamentally, I love this. I just, I want to give you a high five through the screen because I agree with you, right? Like any failure you learn from leads towards something better. But you jumped out really quickly with that. And how did you learn the importance of learning from failure?
If you don't fail, obviously, then you don't grow because you feel like you're always right. So the only way we try hard is because we didn't achieve what we wanted to. I grew up in poverty, so that means the life was not easy. So you have to be persistent. You have to have a thick skin because you'll get many no's, many pushbacks.
Mm,
So obviously, when the road is not smooth, it's rough, you will fail many times. So, but there is no choice. So you have an option of just go back, sit, or keep trying. So one failure in a business or exam or anywhere doesn't mean we sit back. So in my case, again, I can go more deeper into any of those. Like for example, in my case, I had a SaaS startup before. So that experience is the reason behind this business because looking back, I can see that had I not gone through that experience, probably even this business was not as successful because the lessons learned from that previous SaaS startup were applied to all the different projects that were working with the founders. It helped us got there.
totally. Let's, I actually want to hear more about that. That's, let's use this to jump into a little bit of your story. Like you're sitting on the other side of a screen talking to us about innovation. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you got there? You came from humble roots. You faced a bunch of challenges that I think help you learn a bit of an entrepreneurial mindset. But tell us a bit about your background, and yeah, tell us about the the formation story of your company.
Yeah, so I grew up in Pakistan. That's where my education is. Again, as I said, growing up in poverty. During my school time, college time, I was tutoring or doing some side gigs to make some money. I didn't realize, I thought I'm just doing the regular. By looking back, you can say, oh, that was the entrepreneurial things. But for me, those were all just side hustling, doing certain thing along the way to get to the next stage, like next semester, do the work part time, pay for another one. So those things were happening. So obviously, those opportunities make you more stronger. I feel like if you are coming from those background, that will make you more hungry because you want success. You don't want to be settled. And I'm one of those people who just don't want to be sitting and giving up. So I am persistent. That's what I try. Um, so coming to US in 99, worked with again different startups. So I worked with one startup that also had a very interesting story because we built the product. Um, we raised some good money, and this was pre iPhone and Android time,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't make it to. We had to close it. So I was not the founder. I was the one of the early engineer of that. But that's also brought me to the mobile space because that was in the mobile space, and but the phones were not ready. So you can like you had a powerful platform very similar to like as you built like the BlackBerry Enterprise Server App Store features, like you build the app, have security features, MDM, all those things were there, and we were deploying on Sharp Doris and some of those. So now you realize the carrier, the device manufacturer, they're all different. So there is not easy now. I think when Apple and Android came and Google came, they solved this problem because now unless you have a deal with the carrier, because Apple was first, iPhone was first launched with AT&T. So without the carrier support and at the OS level, you don't have um, much power. So, uh, so those were the lessons learned. Obviously, that was more of on an innovation side. But for me, that was my background on the mobile that we can talk later. Uh, Coming from those experiments as an engineer, you always want to build things. So when I was working with once that startup finished, I started doing consulting, and then I said, well, no, I want to build a product. So I started this recruitment software, SaaS, and that's where we learn a lot about building product.
Yeah.
Now, coming from an engineer, who have built things in a traditional way versus now suddenly you're writing your own check. So all those things are different. How you build. So as an engineer, we always think about building a strong foundation. Oh, need to have a scalable architecture and all of those. And now I talk about those in like why software projects fail, because some of those things we did, we built a strong product, really good one, but then we realized nobody's coming to use it. And that's when we went back to
Mm.
the whiteboard, redid that. We spent a lot of money, rebuild that product. Once we have a better user experience, uh, product management, and everything, suddenly now we started getting the customers. So that was a lesson learned from that startup.
And that's an important lesson, right? I want to kind of parse that apart because, you know, so often, I don't know, we have a vision, we have an idea, we're like, if we build it, they will come. But it turns out that there's a lot that goes into actually getting an audience, and it's not really innovation if nobody's using what you're doing, right? So it sounds like you had to go back and figure out how to connect your vision of the world to some kind of customer pain, customer problem, et cetera, that's going to get them to change behavior. um how have you sort of institutionalized that practice based on those lessons?
So lesson learned from there. Now we applied those in our business. So as we started working with the startup. So when we started, we had this motto that we will build once the right way, which
Mm.
is a little bit um, counter argument as well in the startup world, where they say, "Oh, it's a lean building. You want to build and then iterate and learn."
Sure.
So again, so it's counter argument, but at the same time, that is the right way to do it, because startups do not have a whole lot of money. If you only have a 50K or 100K to build your product, you need to get to a certain state where you can raise more money, get customers, or you're going to be out. And we have seen those stories so many times. Many customers come to us. We fix a lot of those broken projects, but many times they're out of money. So that process of building right the first time is really critical. Well, that
Mm.
means you have to come up with more like a hybrid approach of agile as well as a lean approach, so that you are not building something people do. Well, that could also mean that whatever is your initial discovery, your MVP may be 2 weeks long, or your MVP could be a month long. But even that one has to be very clear what you are building, because in our world, we push for building the MVP that's usable. If you can't
Yeah.
bring a customer on that MVP, that's, yeah, people can call it, people, you can experiment certain things, but in reality, that MVP has to be usable. And I always give an example of how you have your vision of mansion that you want to build, that could be millions of dollars, but you're starting with a studio, not with a
Yeah.
room. Because if you build a room that has no bathroom or kitchen, you can't live it. So it's not about building a wall and using it, but it's a studio that has, it's small enough, but one person can live, but it has a water, electricity, kitchen, and everything. So, and then expanding it to what you really want, but having the right foundation from a day one.
I actually I love that. I love that metaphor, and I want to explore it a bit in a second. But I have a question for you. So when you talk about getting the foundations right, it reminds me of a book that I love called "How Big Things Get Done." And it's, if for those who haven't read it, it's wonderful. Or I listened to it on the audiobook, equally wonderful. But it talks about the challenges that lead to large project failure and complications, as well as some of the patterns that lead to success. And it covers everything from the Sydney Opera House to skyscrapers to home renovations and things like that. But it is really interesting because, Ghazenfer, like you're saying, its core thesis, and I promise this doesn't spoil it for people that want to read or listen, but the core thesis is basically you have to spend sufficient time planning before you build. Now, to me, there's always been a tension between that and the lean model. the experimental model, the iterative model, where you sort of refine your plan as you build. I'm curious if you have any thoughts on that, because it sounds like you are trying to bridge the gap in your software projects. You are trying to both plan sufficiently to get an MVP out there, but allow room for experimental iteration. How do you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a process called, we call it a blueprint process. So again, I'll go back to the house example. You sit down with a builder, you say, I want to build this house. They may give you a high level um, idea of what it's going to take. They show you some ideas, right? But then as you define what you really want based on whatever are your parameters, whether it's a budget, timing, and all of those. So you agree on something. And then once you agree on that, in our case, we said, okay, this is a smaller version of, like, you already did your customer discovery. And let's say that customer, with that customer, you got a commitment that if you build these one feature, one or two features, they will use it. And those are the most critical features that they want. You just build that. And so let's say if you, and that's your um, core MVP. In this case, if you're talking about the house, it's a similar way. You create a blueprint. Blueprint is where you know exactly how the house would look, what direction, what size of garage, what size of rooms, how many layer. You want to have those things up front because it's going to be difficult later on to build the basement once you build the house, right? You can always, there are ways, but the cost effective way is that you know that all of those things, and you start with the pieces that you can always furnish that later on, but you can still have the right foundation, and then you
Yeah.
build one piece. So in our case, that blueprint is the one where you really draw everything, your flows, your mock-ups, like how the application would navigate even with one feature. Because one of the challenges we have seen, the customers come in, they said, oh, we want to build this. But if I, for example, say many times, okay, what does the outcome look like for you? Many times it's generic. So you want to
Mhm.
define, I said, let's imagine, visualize that you build this product today. It's done. I give it to you, and how would you verify it? How would you say this is good for me? What would be, what is the outcome look like for you? And if you can elaborate that upfront, then that would help us build the right product for you. So that process of that blueprinting, mapping, because even in the AI world, for example, you have the input, and it says, I want to have my AI give me this thing. Okay, give me the queries that you'll be running in on your chat GPT or whatever that you're imagining, and this is the final output, this is how you're expecting. And then it's much easier to map those once you define that clear flow. So yeah, so coming back to the blueprint is the process uh, that we suggest that without the blueprint, you gonna be experimenting and not necessarily be getting what you really intended to.
That's fascinating. So then if we look at sort of the thesis of your book, is that a piece of the foundation of your book? Because I know that we've heard many times, like, if you can think it, there's probably an app for it, or there's an app for anything or something like that. So I think the two pieces are, how do you build something and be confident that people want it, and then afterwards, how do you promote it or make it known amongst the noise of all the other apps that are out there in the world?
Yeah, so the app solves a little bit of a, I mean, it's broader. It's for early as well as late people. So it talks a lot about how to build the app that people use, share, and love every day. So the challenge in the app world, I can't even count the apps on my downloaded on my iPhone. I keep scrolling. It's hard to find unless I know. I have to search for it. It's
Sure.
so, and you scroll many pages. There are important apps. So it's not that those many of those are unimportant, but people keep forgetting those apps. How do you uh, build something that people remember? So the book talk about those because people do forget quickly.
Well,
So
and how can they not, right? It's so noisy out there. And we've got vibe coding tools that let people throw something up theoretically, right? We've got 1.5 million apps, being marketed and promoted to us on our social feeds and TikTok's recommendations. We have single use apps that are wonderful at what they do, but then you don't even think about them until the next time you need it. And maybe you need to completely remember that you even have the app. So I get this problem because they're everywhere. So, how do we think about dealing with this noise?
yeah, so there are many strategies. So the book talk about from a building perspective, from a marketing perspective, how do you build app? Because it's different than web. Because in a web you build and later on your marketing is outside or most of the time. I mean, yes, there's a percentage, but in mobile, a lot of time you need to embed the marketing inside your app. So, for example, for reminders, you get usually emails, let's say, and now people have those different tools that's filtered to your news folder, and you don't even get to see somebody's sending you an email about the new feature. In mobile, you have a push notification. You can't skip that because the push notification is coming to your phone, whether, I mean, once you enable it. So, and it auto updates. So there are strategies you could do. Obviously, there are standard strategies that you can apply on your web application as well. And but there are many that are only specific to mobile. And those are the ones that you can try and that could remind people. Having said that, it doesn't mean that getting a notification or many of those different strategies will land you, because you still have to be really good app. So I think the one of the early chapters is build a remarkable app, because nowadays the user
Yeah,
experience and design is key. So since the iPhone, that part changed. In the past, people would just build any application. I'm sure you remember the Craigslist time. How
sure.
valuable was it? Everybody was on it almost every day. How traditional the look and feel of that one, but that
That's
was
a
a
that's a
necessity,
nice way to put it.
right?
Traditional.
Yeah. So that was a
But
necessity. People needed it, so people would come. Now it's not always the case. Now people do expect, even the enterprises, they expect a better design. It's no longer, oh, it needs to just get the work done. So once you have the nice design, you have the right experience. People have to be, the app has to be easy to use. Um, and so that's one of the, again, one of the 30 different strategies that I shared. So um, you have to, and I would say majority of those are applicable to many businesses. And so you don't have to implement all, because you cannot. But even if you do half of those, it will make a huge difference in building an app that you could really get people to download and use it.
as a marketing nerd, I'm sorry, I just want to keep diving in on this. Just one more question. How do you know that you've built a remarkable app? Because the same argument could be made that you could have an underwhelming app, but you marketed it really well. You told a really good story, or it's just really pretty, but it's not that exciting. So, how do you know that you have something truly remarkable?
So I'll give you a different analogy. So let's say you find somebody's profile on Facebook, or somebody, a person looks really great. The profile is amazing. That amazing connection can get the initial connection, but are you gonna do multiple meeting with that person
Mm,
after the initial one? So yeah, just having a nice UI will get you the first meeting or first download. But the key part is where we talk. Even the name is beyond the download. Getting the download, it's easy. You can do ads. You can have many different ways. You promote it. Let's say you go to whatever. You may get featured on some news because you knew somebody. But even you don't get that easily featured. But assuming you are able to, you got on the news like TechCrunch or somewhere. But if the app is not solving the problem, you're not gonna keep using the app.
I kind of love this idea of looking at apps like a dating profile. You know what I mean? Like I think that's a really very unique way to look at technology is would I go on a second date with this software?
Yeah, one of
Yeah.
the things, for example, I'll mention that both Apple and Google have different recommendations for the apps, and they would feature your app. So if your app is not really remarkable, even Apple won't feature it, or Google won't feature it. So if you can get to the Apple feature list, then uh, that's a big step. When you go to Apple Store, you see a lot of those apps are preloaded on the iPad. So if you make an effort and your app is so good that Apple put one of those apps as an app that's downloaded on the retail stores iPads, that means anybody visiting that would get to see that. So again, you have to be a really good app in order to get that. And we talk about one of the app in our book, which is a felt app, and they have done it and they have achieved that. So uh,
They
so
got
there are
sorry,
many different
they got preload distribution through Apple. I mean, that's the holy grail.
Yes, because once Apple would feature, so then there are others will also feature because, oh, this is a great app. And then that app so good that Apple put that on their retail store worldwide. And suddenly that get a lot more visibility. That gives you the trust as well.
But that's a
So
little okay. So hang on a second, because like I think you're totally right, and this is what people aspire to. But how do you like? You can't just wave a magic wand and be like, "Oh, I know what I need. I need Apple to distribute my app for me." And you can't just wave a magic wand and say, "Oh, I'm going to make my app so good that Apple's going to distribute it for me." There are some steps to get there. What are those
absolutely.
steps?
So it's one of those. It's not easy, like to getting into the major publications even. So the app has to be good. So if you follow the guidelines that are shared in the book, there are higher chances. That still doesn't mean because their guidelines all you follow the guideline, but they also have some restriction. Like it cannot be, let's say, they cannot be sharing multiple same apps. Like there are times, and it may be featured only for a certain time. Let's say
Mhm.
1 week, Apple has a top picks, so it could be a rotation as well. Like there'll be apps from a different categories, the productivity, the gaming, and depending on your app, you may not even get picked up for a specific reason, depending on the type of app
So what
Apple.
do your partners? What do your partners have to do to optimize their chances of success, right? Because you've got you've got people you're working with, they've got a vision. um how do they maximize the chance of their vision coming to life?
So to in order to maximize the chances, there is no, yeah, I would say there's no magic, or there's no one there's no checklist that, oh, only if you do 10 things you're guaranteed. It's one of those, your chances are increased. So if you follow the tips shared, there are higher chances. Remember, Apple is not about just creating remarkable. They look at the downloads. I mean, they have the one that has all the data, in fact more than what you have. They know
Sure.
how many time people are returning. So it's not about new users, returning user, how many time, what activities are happening on the app that keep bringing users back. They're in keeping it engaged. So all of those activities will make it. Let's say if you build an app and you don't even have to mention, they may reach out to you because they will see so much activity happening from around the world on that one app. So
Yeah,
it will get picked up by somebody for a good way or bad way, but
totally.
once the app has activity, everybody will look at like what's going on. Why is this app so popular?
Well, there is certainly, I think, a truth that success breeds success. And the trick is always getting over that first roadblock. I want to talk about what's been changing in the world over the last few years, right? I mean, we have to talk about AI because everything's AI these days. How has your world changed with I would say, the last 3 or so years of AI coming into common parlance in a new way and with some new assumptions about what should be possible in technology.
AI is opening a lot of doors now. What we are seeing is a lot more innovation happening. So it's like that late 90s when there was a lot of talk about the web and a lot of new sites and apps the innovation was more on that side. This is way bigger than that because now it's not really just AI, it's opening up a lot of those opportunities. People are getting a lot of different ideas. So whether it's on the prediction side, we get a lot on the healthcare prediction side, but there are others as well. So I mean, we're having conversations with legal, with financials. People have this first that a lot of that data that you could analyze and predict a lot of that and do things based off of that, food related. So there is
Sure.
so much happening. Now, obviously, as people are coming up with these ideas, that's opening up doors for us as well, because as a software development company, people do need to build those software. And what we have done in our company, uh, we we have made, I would say, we have a mandate of 10x productivity in our company. We have those. We have a money allocated for every single person. They can buy the tools, but they need to show the productivity.
Yeah.
So like change is difficult. So when it initially came, obviously there are certain people. We were doing AI project, building traditional models, training them. So we were doing that. Then we did um, um, the generative AI, and then all these different tools coming, the vibe coding. We we started making effort, but then change is difficult, so we had to push this change into the company, throughout the company, that everybody needs to be. So we gave them access to the money, we gave them access to the tools so that they could try and innovate on those. So now we use AI pretty much in every department in our company, whether it's sales, marketing, content side, development. All of our developers use AI, whether it's using Cursor, Cloud Code. In our sales department, even we create POCs directly. Like if somebody reach out to us, many times we create a POC using vibe coding in few hours before our meeting with that client. So a lot of those opportunities
Okay,
are
wait,
like
hang on. That's interesting. Hang on. You just said that, like, when you've got an inbound prospect, you can show up with a POC or, some kind of conceptual thing in code to that first meeting. Is that right?
we have done that multiple times. The first one was we got the lead on Friday. I sent a message to my guy over the weekend. My meeting was at 12:15 Eastern time on Monday, and mm, or before that time, I got a video of the POC that was created using that requirement in 4 hours time.
I mean, and is this as simple as your team like getting really good at prompting Replit or Vercel, or is there something deeper going on?
It's a combination with time. Obviously, the first iteration, obviously, everybody was just using, even myself using AI just like a search, but then gradually got better. So we use different, like for example, it could be, let's say, using a combination of those. You get those requirements and maybe use a different tool to create the initial set of mockups, and then another tool to generate the code. So it doesn't have to be just one, let's say Replit or Lovable, because each of these tools have limitations.
Mm.
So whatever are the tools that are good in, so we use the combination of those. But yes, prompting is definitely really critical. Now it's changing how people are articulate. I feel like it's also a good problem to have, because developer used to be more of, developers are the one who mostly follow instruction, or somebody else is doing the product management and giving them guidance. Hey, this is what we need to build, and they would build it.
Yeah.
Now developers have to think differently. Now they have in order to create problem, you have to be able to articulate the problem really well. You have to give a
So
background of what needs to be done.
I wanna jump in on this actually for a second. Because I've been struggling with this, and within our own in-house engineering team, have been struggling with this question of, you know, what is changing in the different roles that different people play in product definition. So you said developers have to think differently. In your mind, does that mean that all developers have to think more like, sort of a product engineer? It's not about implementation to spec, it's about what are we trying to accomplish? Or is there something deeper going on there?
Yes, yes. So developers have to think like a product engineer, like a solution architect, because uh, the traditional ways are not gonna. Even if you're building what you're like, so if you're using, let's say, even cursor in your IDE, you still have to give the right instructions. If your instructions are not right, so for example, if you're generating a code and you ask ChatGPT or the cursor or whatever builder IO or whatever the tool you're using, and says, I want to build, give me a code that's clean, for example. That's very broad. By default, somebody may write it, but you have to be very specific in terms of what you want. So then it will, like, for example, you specify your clear rules. This is how we write variable. This is how we write constant. This is the structure of my library. So you want to give the existing code so that it learns from your code and generate the code that you, because the code generators were already there. So now if you get another one that's building a code that your team is not familiar with, or suddenly there will be more challenges. In fact, that's a bigger thing, bigger challenges nowadays happening, because if you hear 90% of the AI projects are failing, it's many of those reasons because people started doing the white coding, but now you can't use it. It can't go beyond certain, because now you build a code that's even deployed, but now you're stuck. How do you make it scalable? And now you suddenly start using AI to optimize, or even just when you start, let's say, you refactor the code, suddenly you change something that developer didn't know and start see the different behavior. Now suddenly people say, oh no, this is bad, just go back to the traditional. But no, that's not the solution either. Now that's where, how do you take that vibe coded initial POC into something that is more production ready? Because in some tools will just give you a code all in, let's say, few thousand lines just in one file. You have to take it next, optimize it. So there is a work that needs to be done. So vibe coding is great. Vibe coding would get you somewhere for proof of concept. In the traditional way, you were using just Figma or hand sketches to clarify the concept. Now you can get to the next step, build even the POC using the AI to get to the next step.
Okay, that's interesting. So you also mentioned, so you've implemented sort of AI, the use of AI autonomously for anyone across your organization. Is that correct? You said most of the folks on your team are using some form of AI tool.
That's right.
How does the team feel about that? Like, are you met with resistance? Are they excited about it? Are they bringing you tools that you've never heard of that are new and fresh? Like, how's the sort of culture around this?
It's a uphill battle. It's challenge. Change is not easy. Uh, mm, we have seen the resignations as well, because somebody said, "Oh, I have to start learning again." But there are people, I mean, like, I keep learning all the time. Everybody should be learning. And this is a
Yeah.
time, if you're
Yeah,
not
right.
learning, you are behind. So the story of blockbusters, babies are us, toys are us, all those are not that foreign to everybody. I mean, it's a recent past, so we all know what happened. So the chance for us is to be, do we compete? Do we get on that race and compete and beat others, or just wait for the innovation to kill us? And we decided to compete, to be ahead of others rather than waiting for the innovation to kill us. So along the way, some people, it may not be right for some people. They may not. For some, there'll be a lot more coming in as well. So yes, there is a pushback, there is a resistance, but not from everybody. I think it takes time for people to realize what is given to them is good. So I still remember that Steve Jobs quote that your customers don't know what they want. You have to show them. I think that
Yeah.
is also very true for your employees many times. You have to
Yeah.
show them what is right for them. If their path, I mean, if they're very clear and their paths are different, that's understandable. But company has a vision, company have the goals, and as long as those paths align, then that's perfectly all right. So uh, with the resistance, sometime again, not seeing the long term benefit, but a lot of time as people start working, now we're getting also a good feedback because whatever was not possible a few months ago now started becoming possible. Now they can see, oh, a lot more interesting thing can happen. Some of those outcomes are mind blowing. So mm, as you are seeing the outcome of it, the you are adapting it. And again, we look at it, AI is not a replacement or not um, something complicated or foreign. AI is there to increase the productivity. It's a multiplier. It's helping you do more. And
It
I think
is.
once people start really seeing that it's actually there's a small learning, but then it's helping them do more, that's when they get excited.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something. I think you just hit on a couple really key components that drive a truly innovative organization, right? Because it's really easy to see changes in the world around us, but not actually take any action and then just walk eyes wide open off the cliff. But you hit on two things. One of them is curiosity, and I completely agree with you. If we're not curious, if we're not learning in today's world, we're behind. And the second thing is not just painting a vision, but kind of modeling for your employees, being directive to employees. This is where we're going. And I'm curious how you do that effectively and how you help your clients and partners do that. How do you model the behaviors that you want to see in terms of the adoption of new ideas, new technologies, the experimentation that is going to keep you ahead of the curve? It's not an easy thing to do.
And it's not an easy thing to answer as well. So I don't know how we'll. But yeah, so as I mentioned, so we have these once a week exercise. The whole company we get on a Zoom call. We talk about that's a AI goals call. So we have a quarterly goals, and then people will have a certain task to achieve in us, and those every month,
A
and
quarterly
then
AI goals call.
well, yeah, so we have a quarterly eye goals, but the weekly call where we see
Yeah,
the progress as well, and sometime just as people are learning. So, for example, somebody learn,
that's
for
cool.
example, a new vibe coded tool. They'll be sharing. We one meeting we did, let's say, how to create GPTs. Another one, Claude and Chat GPT projects. In another one, AI agent. Another one, we use Creo AI. In another meeting somebody shared how to do, let's say, an agent like automation tool. So every time we're doing, so it's like a lunch and learn, but those are also then the quarterly goals. And then we made it mandatory that everybody has to do, for example, prompt engineering, context prompt engineering as well, because if you don't know the basics, you're going to be missing. A lot of people by default assume we know the stuff because, oh, how difficult is prompting, but you underestimate it unless until you really get into this. We said no, it's a mandatory, so that everybody has to do the training and share that training.
Yeah.
So, and then we will do Q&A. We did the same exercise for our health because we do healthcare like HIPAA. So everybody in our company is familiar with how the HIPAA development, QA perspective from project management, from our development. You need to build that training kind of. So we build that interactive one. and now we're adding quizzes into it. So as people are doing and this is where I mentioned earlier, there was a pushback, but then people started seeing that, because once people start to learn and they really get excited. So it is a change. It's difficult, but that's one way we are doing. There are, and again, we're learning as well. We will continue to uh, learn and improve. And the second thing I mentioned earlier was allocating the money. So that people, because there's so many different tools coming. When we started initially, people will experiment, then there are limitations. So then we started investing in those so that people are able to use different tools, and that creates a differentiator as well, because not everybody is giving that much. So then that's a big benefit. Now when it comes to customer, it's a bit challenging, obviously, because in our business, one of the things we do is uh, we we don't always just listen to customer and just do what they tell us. We
Sure.
always push back. There is
Yeah.
always, because
No,
we
that way
believe the
lies
software.
madness.
Right. Exactly. And so, because we always, and sometimes it gets into a complicated conversation as well, like, oh, we're challenging our business model. Well, we are not challenging the business model. We are just um, challenging the approach, so that just to see if the alternates have been thought through, or at least we will get the answer by pushing back on a certain thing, right? So most development, so there's a lot of interactive work, so you have to get clarity on many of those things. We have to show what we don't see, so, or what they don't see. So a lot of those things we need to do. So working with the customer, also guiding them how the whole process work, this blueprint process that I talked, not everybody is familiar, because by default, what do you hear? Oh, we're looking for a developer. Why do you need a developer? How to build this X thing? So I tell, it's like hiring a handyman or one of the workers that were building your house to build the house, because it's not really just building the house, it's the foundation, it's the whole direction that goes into it. So software is like that. So what needs to be built is more important. And then uh, how, once you know these two, then you can have anybody build it. So same goes into, as you're building, whether it's AI or non-AI projects. AI is even more complicated, because now a lot of people have a misunderstanding of what the AI is. Oh,
Yeah.
because people are using ChatGPT and feel like ChatGPT, like, oh, we'll just give in the prompts and it should give us the answer. There is so much more into it, that if you don't know that, then it's gonna probably fail your project. And that's one of the reason you hear, like, majority of the healthcare, the AI projects are a failure, because they're not ready for it. They didn't think through. They just assume that if we just plug in AI, it's gonna solve
Magic.
the problem. Like, yeah, I can say, oh, we just want to put OpenAI API integration, and we will have AI integrated into our
Although I'm not
workflows.
going to lie, I think I've given my engineering team guidance like that occasionally. Hey, like, why don't you just infuse some AI and then our problems will be solved? So I get where that comes from.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of actionable insights, I think, from what you just said. It's time for us to start wrapping up soon, but I do have one last question. That's kind of just in a bit of a different direction before we start signing off, and that is, you've touched on health tech a couple of times and healthcare. I'm very curious. What are some of the most disruptive trends that you're seeing on the horizon right now?
The most important one that we are seeing is the predictability part. Everybody wants to predict the diseases, the symptoms, the personal health prediction. That's the most demanding for us. People are looking to get more insights into the personal health data. So, and that's not really just the personal health, obviously, in overall healthcare, but this is where we are seeing. But there are a lot of more other areas as well, with on the oncology side, on the cancer, on the other diseases side. So now that you have a data, so you can have a lot more insights into the data. So, and it's much easier compared to before. No doubt. Yes, there
Yeah,
are failing. It's just because people are not familiar with it, how to do it. But once you know how to do it, then it's much easier.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. If folks from the audience want to get in touch with you, how could they do so? LinkedIn or whereabouts are you hanging out these days?
So my LinkedIn, easy to find with my name. You won't find anybody else with this name spelling. My first name, Ghazenfer.com. That's my personal website where you can find more about my book as well as my own podcast, which is Lessons from the Leap. And then my business website is technologyrivers.com. So if anybody is interested in working with us on any of the project, whether it's AI, AI enablement, any app development, or any conversation about the mobile app growth strategies, happy to chat.
Ghazenfer, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us on Innovators Inside. This has been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was a pleasure having on this podcast. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks.
Cheers.